Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey, babies. Hi, everyone. Guess what, everyone? Nova Ted, everybody. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. See you in Old Town. Hi, everyone.
Oh, God. I mean, it's not Old Town, but
close.
It's close.
Pretty darn close.
I'm already seeing people pipe up in the neighborhood there.
Not pleased?
Not pleased at all.
Yeah. Well, nobody likes a stadium in their backyard, so, but, you know. The Commanders, that was the original spot of Jack Kent Cook's dream of FedEx Field.
That's right. Yeah, right.
Actually,
we're
it was
like
supposed to be Potomac Yards.
Yeah.
That's where it was. That's where he was trying to put it years and years and years ago. Then he ended up in Landover. Built that thing out there. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes it. So that's Josh's issue now. Deal with that. Deal with that one.
I think the worst case scenario is there's a roadway to it now of DC could lose everybody. Like, if they don't get the RFK site now.
I think the Nationals are going anywhere anytime soon.
No, they're not going anywhere. Yeah. But I'm just saying in terms of the ones.
DC United's not going anywhere.
The ones that are
for sure.
available is what I mean.
DC United's got a great venue. They're not going anywhere.
I actually talked about this on Friday. We didn't talk about this yesterday, but Ben Standig said tinfoil hat, maybe the Commanders play at Bird because of the relationship, like in between.
Well, I think that's a distinct possibility no matter what they do because they're going to have to probably be somewhere just in case
right.
if they tear down FedEx Field or not.
Correct.
I mean, they could just leave it standing until the transition happens, however long that may take. This is why we're going to hear about a stadium soon. Their lease also, not unlike what's going on with Ted, now that we know that lease is ending or can be ended, soon, that they need to get the ball rolling now because otherwise there's going to be a carryover at some point because what he's talking about building, which apparently is happening.
Yeah.
It's not. There's a lot of steps, and I can go through all that, but it wouldn't have gotten this far if it wasn't happening. It's happening.
The second part to that though was just because you mentioned them was like I would really like to see the Commanders play at Audi.
Too small.
Chargers played at a soccer stadium.
They did.
The
it's
XFL
too small.
plays there.
The NFL doesn't want that, though. The NFL doesn't want that. And they can go to Bird if they really had to, because at least it's a big enough venue to accommodate.
I just want a small venue to watch those guys play.
That would be really fun.
Pregame at Navy Yard and walk on over.
Yeah, that would be fun.
It'd be the most amazing scene ever for this city.
There's a lot to them going over to Maryland with the business operations.
Turn Nats Park into a football stadium.
They could.
New bowl game there.
New bowl game. Surprised they haven't had a bowl game.
Capital Classic.
The Capital Classic. I hate baseball stadiums with football fields in the middle of them because nobody's near the field.
That's right.
Is what it is. Nobody's near the field. Nobody. There's 8 people around home plate that are by an end zone. Everybody else is so far away. It's just
baseball
stupid.
stadiums in general are never good for that. Like I went to the Winter Classic at Nationals Park, and I had the second most expensive ticket you could buy, and I was still so far from
away.
the ice.
I know.
Barely could see the puck in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
So same thing. But anyways.
I'll get to Ted in a bit. I want to talk about cutlets. We'll start there.
His agent or him?
All of it. This to me is topped insanity. This is maybe the best 15 minutes of fame in New York that I can remember in a while. And you got to trust me on this one.
No distinction though. New Jersey. There's a difference here.
Yeah, but it's New York Giants.
But
it's a New York team.
I'm going to say this though. New York's trying to claim all of this. This is Jersey's moment. I'm going to just make that distinction.
He is from Jersey. That's true. He's Jersey.
He lives in Jersey. His parents' house is in Jersey.
Right.
His name is DeVito.
Right.
His agent looks like he's from Goodfellas.
Okay, that was amazing. The agent showing
Jersey.
up.
Jersey.
The agent showing up in the outfit that he wore last night was perfect.
Have you seen screenshots of his other outfits?
No.
This is a thing.
It's his thing.
He just dresses like this.
They're so leaned into We're the Sopranos. It's so great. It's just so perfect.
Someone posted a picture of his parents' tailgate, and it was full Italian dinner.
Yeah.
Like shells, pasta, cutlets, of course. It was like 5 or 6 parking spaces long of food.
They said last night, his mom, the whole thing was his mom makes him the cutlets every night. Right. He's really happy. He said, someone said, I think it was Joe Buck said, they haven't had to make food the last few weeks because food just shows up at their house. Like every restaurant,
you know his name?
Every Italian restaurant shows up, sends stuff to his house now.
Sean Stellato.
Sean Stellato?
He apparently, only because I'm seeing it on Twitter, he did join Kay Adams this morning.
Oh, I bet he did. In the outfit?
Yeah. Oh, no. He was actually dressed normally, but I'm going to favorite it and listen to it in the break. But
yeah,
No, his outfits are like this every single week.
Yeah.
Where it's just, he looks like he's at a Goodfellas.
They need to enjoy this. Someone asked Dayball, either last night or today, they made a Tom Brady reference. Like, this guy's not Tom Brady.
No.
And this is why I want to go back to, you got to trust me on this one. This is a 15 minutes of fame for sure.
Of course.
And Dayball even was like, all right, slow down. Like, he's like, this is fun. I'm glad that we're doing this. Go look at his stats last night. It's not like he lit anything up.
No,
like,
of course.
He didn't. And we sacked him 9 times, okay? Like, it's not fast track.
Lost.
Right. It's not.
So.
Yeah, that's more on us than it is on him.
I'm still saying
it's way more on us than it is on him. My point is this. This is fun. This is great for them. They're having their moment of the season, which I will yell about on our end. This is the only time I can remember that this team hasn't had a moment at some point in a season. No moment. The moment that we had was a near miss in Philadelphia in week 4. And since then, they've won a couple games, barely, against average to bad teams. And then every other game, they've either lost or been shellacked. And we've had nothing to lean back on throughout this entire process other than the Philadelphia near miss and the Seattle near miss. Because that's really it. That's all we've had. Their best 2 performances of the season are losses in tough places to play with last-minute touchdowns that we lost anyway. We have not had, unless you count coming, because that was a big comeback against Denver.
Sure.
They were down 17.
That's their moment. I'd give them that's their moment.
That was their moment. That was their moment. But, the Cardinals game isn't, other than...
God, no, they were down going into the fourth quarter.
That was supposed to be a coronation, and that turned out to be oh, my God, we might lose.
That's correct, yes.
To them. Then they went 2-0. That was a heck of a comeback, and I'm like, okay, we're going to be all right. Then we got blown out by the Bills, and then we had the near miss against the Eagles, and it's not been the same since. And at no point in time, if we had a moment, and here's the Giants... Terrible for most of the year, tons of injuries, a mess. As predicted, terrible early season schedule that was going to get them in this situation in the first place. And look what's happening right now. Are they going to make the playoffs? Probably not. But do they feel at least better about themselves because of what's happened the last few weeks? Thanks to this Cutlets guy out of nowhere, his crazy agent and the family. They're at least having fun. They're all doing the pizza tastes good, gesture.
Which is amazing.
Amazing. This is in my recent memory the best 15 minutes of fame anything that a New York team has had in since Linsanity, and it won't last. You just got to trust me on that. This guy is not the future for them, but they're having fun with it, and I want to let them have their fun with it because we at least had it with Heineke. We had this in the past where we had a moment with Heineke a couple of times where you're like, man, this guy's a gamer. I like him. Everybody at least came around to, we know he's not going to be Pat Mahomes for us.
Sure.
But we're enjoying this. He's a gamer. They win a couple games you don't expect them to. They're in every game that they play. They're competitive now. They're at least having it.
Well, and here's the thing that's going to be fun for them. They're a game back of a wild card spot now.
Right.
You can say
now
what
the
you
game's
want.
out. They haven't played the Eagles yet.
No, of course.
This is amazing.
No, of course. Then you got to play them twice. But I'm saying,
and the Eagles are going to thrash them at least once.
Right.
That is going to happen.
But we went through this here.
Don't give me the Jalen Hurts sucks stuff because he doesn't.
No.
Go on.
But we went through this here, though, where it's just fun to be in the mix.
Yeah.
It's
fun to be in the mix. We haven't been in the mix.
PFT had an amazing take. He goes, when you're in the hunt, it's like drugs.
Yes.
It doesn't even matter if anyone's being realistic or not. Until you're gone and eliminated, in the hunt next to your name is like being on drugs until you're not.
We could have the same season, even with the last few weeks, had they won either one of that Philadelphia-Seattle game, we'd be playing the There are 6 teams in the NFC that are 6-7, and 2 of them are going to make the playoffs. 2 of those 6 and 7 teams, one's going to win a division, and one's going to be a wild card. 2 6 and 7 teams are currently right now will be in the NFC playoffs. We should be at 6 and 7 or at worst 5 and 8. And if that was happening, we'd at least be in the mix. Instead,
we're definitively out.
Haven't had a moment. And everybody's going, keep winning, New England. Maybe we'll get the two. Maybe we'll get the second pick. Keep winning, Arizona. Even Arizona's having
They're
moments.
A game behind us, yeah.
They went and won in Pittsburgh. They've won a couple of games since Kyler's come back. They've been competitive the whole time. Mm-hmm. They beat Dallas earlier this year. They at least have something that they can hang their hat on. They knew they were going to suck this year. And they at least have had something to hang their hat on. That's what I think is the most discouraging thing about our season this year is I can't point to literally anything and go, that was our moment. This was our thing. This was that time period. And in the middle of the season, October, November, that's Rivera time in the first few years where no matter how it started, we had our moments in the middle of the season. And this year, it just crashed and burned this time.
I would say it's the Broncos game because the throw to Terry was one of the best throws we've seen in years.
That was great. We survived a Hail Mary at the end of the game.
The Dotson catch against the Eagles, I know it was in a loss, was still incredible. That one was amazing.
Last play of the game?
Yeah, right. That was incredible, but that was
this
a
all
loss.
Feels like eons ago.
Yeah, it does. It feels
like I
years
said,
ago.
our moment was going toe-to-toe with the Eagles, scoring on the last play of the game, but losing.
You mean
that turned out.
You mean it wasn't the Bears on Thursday Night Football?
It was not. That was their moment. It was not ours. That's when I went, I'm shook. We might be done here. Let's see what happens.
That was your finished.
Well, that's what I said after it. I go, I am not predicting what they're going to do the rest of the way because if you're capable of doing this at home against them, then you're capable of not winning many games the rest of the way. So show me. And I was of the Rivera time. Well, it's Rivera time now. So maybe we'll just turn it around and be fine. No, not this year. And the last month or so, we've just been getting thrashed. It's not even, we're in games that just kind of don't happen in the NFL very often.
Correct.
Every week.
Uh-huh.
We're getting destroyed.
Well, all year long, it's the one consistent thing is all year long, if something is going wrong for the other team, it goes right. That's offense and defense. Yes. I think that's actually the most pitiful thing besides the scores of the last couple of weeks. But it's more, this defense has 3 sacks on the year. Oh, here's 5 for you against the Commanders.
Correct.
Oh, this offense, these wide receivers haven't topped 100 yards all season long. Here's 2 100-yard wide receivers for you.
And it's
more unbelievable that it's going both ways.
The hard part too is when you go through the schedule and it actually set up for them to have a lot more moments that they just didn't.
You think?
When they played the Bills actually had played really well week 2. And that's when I started doing their demise is a little overrated here, guys.
Sure.
So we lost them. I was okay. We went up to Philadelphia and did what we've done the last few years. We go toe-to-toe with those guys. But we lost. I was disappointed we lost, but I was okay. So we lost in Philadelphia. Nobody's won there in 3 years. Okay, fine. The Bears game was terrible. Terrible. Then they turned around and beat the Falcons, who aren't good.
Correct.
We knew this, right? Weren't good.
Also barely, though, by the way.
Barely. Had to hang on at the end.
Correct. Yeah.
Hang on.
Right, exactly.
They needed Ritter to throw a bunch of interceptions.
Yes.
And he
exactly.
did.
Exactly. Not only throw interceptions, but return it.
Here's what happened from there. They got the Giants, who had Tyrod Taylor and no offensive line.
Uh-huh.
We couldn't score in the first half, managed 7 points against them. Their defense was the worst in the NFL at the time. Mm-hmm. They had their backup quarterback, no offensive line, hadn't scored a touchdown in the first half in a month, scored 2.
And that was it, though.
That was it. And that's what they kept saying. Well, we only held them to 2 touchdowns. Well, you only scored 1. The next week was Philly round 2, which didn't add up to be very well. But they actually showed up and were competitive with them. They actually had an early lead against them.
That one had the feel, though, the whole time they were ahead.
Correct.
You were like, Philly's coming here. We just don't know when the comeback's actually going to be complete.
Then they went to New England. It was clear they were broken. Mac Jones was still playing. And they went up-tempo on us. And again, we needed an interception at the end of the game to hold on. But we won. Then they went to Seattle. Seattle was struggling mightily. Geno was throwing it all over the place. We got no turnovers. He lit us up. And again, we were close, but no cigar. We lose.
Right.
They score almost 30 points. They hadn't done that in a month against anybody. Then we get the Giants again with cutlets, still no offensive line, and a defense that's still not playing very well. And we turn the ball over 8 million times against them. Wasn't it 6? Wasn't that what it was? 6 turnovers?
That sounds right, yeah.
I think it was 6-0.
Yeah.
And remember, we got the ball late with a chance to win anyway.
Right. Yeah. Right.
That's how bad they are.
Nope.
That is how bad they were. They had a turnover margin of 6-0 and had to hang on at the end to win. Then we played the Cowboys. Finally, we played a team that was wrong time to play them.
Yeah.
And then we played the Dolphins, which doesn't look right today after what they did last night. But again, was one of those where I went, we are not catching them at the right time at all. And everything blew up in their face. But the point is, all of these, the schedule actually lined up for them to have way more wins than they had. The Seattle game, the Giants game, the Bears game, obviously. Any of those going the other way, or stealing one of those Eagles games, any of those going the other way, and we'd be in the mix. But we haven't had a moment.
Right.
And I'm watching the Giants last night, or I'm watching Will Levis freaking out after he leads them back to like the stat was something like, if you're down 14 with under 3 minutes to go, teams are 0-767 in the last whatever. And then he brings them back, and he's losing his cookies, on the sideline, like so psyched that they did it, and they held on anyway. They're going to feel good about this. They're not going to make the playoffs, but they at least got their rookie quarterback to look good in this moment, win a game on the road. They feel good. They had a moment. The Giants are having a moment here. I don't think it's going to last, but they're having a moment, and they're enjoying themselves with this guy doing the Italian signs, and the agent shows up, and he looks straight out of Central Casting of Goodfellas, and the mom and the dad are like straight out Tony Soprano. They're having fun with it, and we just haven't had fun. Our moment was the sale of the team.
Yeah, that's what I said yesterday.
Our moment was the sale of this team.
Unfortunately, everyone would still trade that.
I can't believe it. I just can't believe it because our roster isn't this. That's the problem.
The funny part about last night, too, with the Titans game was, they have a legitimate running back that they decided to start running at the Dolphins towards the end there, and they bang in a touchdown with Henry. And we're kind of like, I wish we had one of those. Oh, wait, we do. We do have one of those guys. He's not Henry, but, I don't know. Maybe some power football might have helped you against some of these teams that you got blown out by if you started running the ball at the beginning of games instead of dropping Sam back 40 times a game.
We haven't had a moment for so many reasons. One, our defense was a massive disappointment, collectively and individually, with a lot of the players. And then we had the trade deadline, and that felt terrible, that we traded both of them. Yeah. Trading one felt obvious, but trading both of them felt rough.
Yeah.
Not that I think it was the wrong thing to do, but it felt rough. I'm going to get to Montez Sweat a little later because, he said some things that ain't going to make you feel good either, because they're having a little bit of modicum of... They're having a moment!
Yes, correct.
They're having a moment. When we played them, they hadn't won in a calendar year. They've now won more games than we have this season. Their quarterback actually is starting to make the case again because they're going to have the number one pick. They're going to have the same decision they had a year ago, and this one's going to be harder because that's not Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. It's Caleb Williams.
Right.
They're going to have a very tough decision to actually make about that. And their defense is way better, and the player they acquired is saying, this coach keeps everybody together. They're having a moment.
Must be nice.
We're the only team. Arizona's had moments in recent weeks. Arizona. They got Kyler back. They have a terrible roster. They clearly weren't going to be very good this year, and they're winning games. They won in Pittsburgh.
Right.
Kyler's looked okay. They're playing hard for this new coach.
Mm-hmm.
You can't name three people on their defense. They're playing hard for this coach. This is rough, man. We're the only team that's like this, where it's when you think back to this season, what are you going to think about? The sale of the team.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it's going to be, the sale of the team. Short of they show up and surprise everybody over the last 4 games, which, considering who the last 2 are against, and both of those teams, it's already set up for, they're going to have something to play for, whether it's the 1 seed
right,
or a division in the case of the Cowboys, because that's what it's setting up for. This isn't going to be like last year with the Cowboys. That game's going to mean something to them one way or the other. It might be for the division and it might be for the 1 seed, and in either case, we're not going to get the worst of Dak like we got last year.
Right.
And the Niners are clearly going to be playing for the 1 seed at that moment with Philly and Dallas hot on their heels. They're going to have to win. That doesn't stink. That stinks. So these next 2, we better have our moment. We better have our Hollywood moment. And I don't feel confident that's going to happen because we haven't had it.
Maybe they beat the 49ers at home.
Maybe they do.
And that's their moment.
That's the
they
moment.
They beat Kyle finally.
And then there's...
They won't.
And then there's this.
Heavy sarcasm.
Rodgers is seriously talking about playing against us.
They were losing that game. I don't care who was starting. They were going to lose that game
regardless. Because of the Jets defense?
Yeah, and once again, Zach now is slinging it. So who cares?
For a week. He did for a week, yes. He did. As of 5 days ago, there were reports that he didn't want to play for them again.
No. Okay. This actually isn't about Zach. It's about us. Every freaking offense and defense that comes in and can't do X, Y, and Z goes and does X, Y, and Z against this team. That's the worst feeling in the world. It started happening in the first 2 months of the season with the Giants.
Yeah.
Oh, you only have 3 sacks on the year? Here's 5.
Yeah.
Oh, your offense doesn't have an offensive line, a guy who's on the streets? We're not going to sack the quarterback at all. And in fact, they're going to win with just scoring 14 points.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I'm saying with Zach. It's not about Zach. It's about this defense sucks so bad. He'll be fine because everybody's fine against us.
Right. He'll be fine.
Who's been the
Breece
bad
Hall
quarterback?
Will get some pitch to the right side and break it for 50 yards.
Who's been the bad quarterback this year against us?
What number 1 receiver has not had a good game against us?
Right. Yeah, right.
Which one?
Exactly.
Which
Giants,
one?
Danny Dimes didn't play this year against us, and Tyrod and Cutlets did fine.
We've been lit up by We got lit up by Metcalf and Lockett.
Yep.
Lit up by Tyreek, bad. Lit up by DJ Moore, bad. We had that guy, that rookie from Denver, who had like 3 catches for 120 yards against us. A.J. Brown killed us twice. Stephon Diggs killed us when he played us.
Yep.
The Patriots literally don't have a receiver. That's the only one. They literally don't have one. Metcalf and Lockett. Jalen Hyatt.
Yep. How are people not picking on these receivers for daily fantasy every week?
At this point, it's like, too late. There's a lot of people who probably hung on to the Rams that are staring at a survivor pool going, bingo.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
When did you pick them earlier this year?
Yep. Exactly.
There are people picking the Jets. This is crazy. The other thing the one thing about the New York fan base too, I just want to point out, because I really believe this is a total 15 minutes, and this guy should enjoy it. It's great. Is that the overreaction? I always think the New York fans are very smart, and then they have these overreactions where they literally ask questions like, "Do you think this guy is Tom Brady?" And like, "Are you nuts?"
Well, it's because
Jeremy Lin ought to get the biggest point guard deal ever because he had a 2-week run where he was amazing. Like they do this, or they call in and ask for preposterous trades.
It's because
we can get Kevin Durant for Julius Randle. See, we can do that. Like, no, you can't.
New York sports radio there's not a driving 65. It's literally 0 to 100. You can never, ever have the in-between talk.
It's the
always,
bing bongs.
Yeah.
Everything goes bing bong real fast.
The speed limit is 65, but everyone's going 120.
They're so excitable.
Yes.
They can't stop themselves. They're like, this is the DeVito guy. Right. Forget Danny Dimes. We got DeVito now. And okay. Like, yeah, he's a Pro Bowler. Yeah, okay.
And I actually think Giants fans would be more measured because they've won 2 Super Bowls in the last 2 decades, but the problem is they've been so terrible for the last 8 years.
Yeah.
They all crashed back down to earth with the Jets fans. Like they were literally the worst team in football up until last year.
That's right.
So their fans actually forgot about their 2 Super Bowls with Eli because they were just so terrible after that.
They were the worst team in the league for about 6 years running.
Right. So that's where my mind was like, you guys have won Super Bowls recently against
Brady.
That
long ago.
But no, they were so terrible. They all forgot how winning feels. And then we have this situation like last night where Cutlets is best quarterback ever all of a sudden.
Cutlets. I can't believe it. I just can't. Well, I guess you know what? You know what our moment is? But you'd have to hang your hat on it. For a long period of time, Sam Howell had the most passing yards in the league. That's what you'd have to hang your hat on.
Yeah.
Now, granted, a lot of it had to do with the amount of pass attempts that they had.
And the scores of games too.
Yeah, the pass attempts were so high and skewed. Yes. They were way more pass heavy than I ever thought they would be. I knew they'd be more pass than run, but 70-30 at times early in the season, where we're asking questions like, is Brian Robinson still on the team? Why would he have 6 carries in a game? That doesn't even make any sense. And which then shifted to, they've actually been running the ball a lot more, but now Terry and Jahan don't see passes.
That's right, yeah.
And you're like, why are they forgotten?
Robinson had 7 carries against the Dolphins at home in the rain.
Right.
7 for 53, by the way. Not like he was bad.
That game also flipped fast on him, though.
Yeah, I mean,
at least against Dallas, they
held on for 3 quarters.
It didn't spiral to the fourth quarter.
Yeah, exactly.
In the Dolphins game was over at halftime.
Well,
they were just getting destroyed.
Well, I don't know. Gee, maybe you should double team Tyreek Hill, or maybe not make sure Quan Martin's the only guy running after him. It's so simple. That's what I hate. That's what I've hated about this year. Ron, who likes to bite people's heads off sometimes, is looking at a fan base that's going, I'm sorry, is double covering Tyreek Hill not in the game plan?
Right.
Because what are we doing here?
And then the Hard Knocks comes out. And they're like, if we get man, it's stealing. I'm like, oh, God. And they were like, it was like they knew it. They're like, well, going man against him with anybody is stupid.
The worst part, by the way, with Hard Knocks.
He's the fastest guy in the NFL.
Was them doing, you watched Hard Knocks last week, right?
I watched ours. I wanted to see what they said. Yeah.
When they do the whole
I won't watch this week because I won't care. But like I watched last week because we were in it. So that's why I wanted to see it.
The worst part is they do the whole human thing on Andrew Van Ginkel. And you're like, oh, God, he's going to return a pick six because that's what he did in the game. Like they do the whole entire look in on him. Like,
well, they did, right. But they did that. They emphasized it because of what he did.
No, I know. No. That's what I'm saying. It's the worst
production.
That's what I'm saying. It's the worst feeling in the world when you're the away team. You're like, oh yeah, this guy scored the pick six. Oh, here's 20 minutes on him and his family.
Yeah, Hard Knocks is easier to produce in season because you could take whoever the star was in the game and turn it into the story that you want it to be.
Exactly.
So. And they had a good reason to profile this guy because Jalen Phillips just got hurt. He's replacing him, and he stood in a passing lane he shouldn't have been in, and Sam Howell just threw it at him.
Which feels great as a Commanders fan watching.
We've had a pick six 3 straight weeks, right?
Yeah, Sam. That was one of the stats for Sam Howell. 3 straight touchdowns the other way.
Yeah, one was the end of the game, they threw it up to Isaiah Simmons. That was a desperate play. Deron Bland's was as things were spiraling, but still, but that was in real time. That was a real play. Sure. And then last week, the one 2 weeks ago was like, oh, God. What is that? How did that even happen?
Right.
Why is that guy standing there?
Why did
anybody block him?
What are the next 2 home games going to be like?
I don't know.
I think
there's going to be a lot of 49ers fans.
I don't
know.
I think
it's because it's New Year's Eve.
Right. I think you might have an empty stadium for the Niners, and then Cowboys game might be worse than it was 2 or 3 years ago when, remember that game with the bench game?
They could be playing for the 1 seed.
The bench game.
Their schedule's actually a lot harder than the Eagles. So,
but remember the bench game? It was like 80% Cowboys fans.
That was terrible.
Well, I think it's going to be worse than that, though.
The Cowboys, I remember I saw this the other day. The Cowboys are playing, hold on. They have a hard schedule here down the stretch. Yeah, their next 2 are at Buffalo, at Miami.
Right.
So that's tough. And then they get Detroit at home, which should be no great shakes.
Right.
Philadelphia's isn't that. They got the Giants twice, and I think the Cardinals.
Yep.
So Dallas is going to have to. They're going to have to win some games. They're going to be tough to win. Yeah, they got
at Seahawks, Giants.
Seahawks, which Dallas is praying they lose, which they could. The way they're going and the way, Seattle's going to need it, and it's that could be a tough one. But they end Giants, Arizona Giants. And the Cowboys have 3 playoff teams, 2 of them on the road, Buffalo, and, well, maybe Buffalo might not be, but they could be. Right. And it's in Buffalo. Those people are. And at Miami, those are tough games. So that game at the end of the year screams it's going to be for the division at worst.
Right.
Which means they're going to show up and play hard. Because the truth is, I think, Dallas needs home games to go where they want to get to. I don't think they're going to make it on the road to the Super Bowl. But I think if they have home games, then I think they got a legitimate shot at it.
Just remember, they were playing for seeding last year, too.
They were, but it was...
Still, they came into that game playing.
There were things on the table, but they needed things to really, really, really go their way.
They were playing everybody, though.
Yeah, they did. And Dak was actually terrible.
But that last year's Washington team is not this year's Washington team.
No, it is not. Hi, everyone. Big day for me. I would like to start with the lawmakers in step 1 of moving the Capitals and Wizards to a new facility in Alexandria. It is step 1. There are a lot of hurdles, not unlike the RFK thing. There are a lot of hurdles here. Like the General Assembly needs to vote on it, but not unlike what I said about RFK getting on the table for the Commanders. The first step was going through this committee, and that happened. So the ball's rolling.
Right.
It's different though. Like the federal government probably doesn't care whether the Commanders come here. They have to determine whether to do it or not, and that's why it's kind of up in the air whether they would actually pass it.
Right.
Everything leads you to believe they will. They also haven't done it, and here we are December 12th, right? So why? Who knows? Anyway, only they know the answer to that. This one's different. While they did clear a massive step 1, steps 2, 3, and 4 would lead you to believe, considering it's the same people that would vote on this, that they plan on it.
Right.
There will be healthy debate, of course, and I'm sure some people who live in Alexandria are pissed about the idea of this happening.
Well, no. I think it's probably just like RFK. I bet you it's 50-50. I bet you there are people that do not want thousands of cars coming through on every game day, which would be 82, and not including concerts.
Correct.
So, but then
they're building a little concert venue too. I'll go through the plan here, but
we'll get to that. But
it's going to be busy,
right? But what I was going to also add on to that is I'm sure you have people also, because I've talked to people that live down by RFK that go, "Oh, we want it to happen because our property value is going to go up, and we get to do certain things on game day, like charge people to park in our driveway."
Right.
It's 50-50. I really think there are people that want this type of stuff, and the other people that are like, get out of my neighborhood because they want to live a quote-unquote normal life.
So this is it's a committee, a group of lawmakers in Virginia voted in favor of a deal that would ultimately, we think, bring both the Capitals and Wizards to Northern Virginia under a plan of a development that is mixed use, which is, we talk about Commander Land, we've got Ted Land now. This is Ted Land.
Well, Monumental Land is really what
right?
it is.
He's building Monumental Land. It would include a stadium that would hold both the Capitals and the Wizards under this report.
Yep.
It would have a big underground parking structure, so the parking shouldn't be that much of an issue. The metro goes right there. I will say this, and this is something that I said about Dumfries and Woodbridge and all that stuff. That corridor of 95 is a mess.
Yes.
Right? So that's why I thought that was a bad idea to have games that, one, it's very far away, but this is not. This is close regionally. However, anybody who knows going to Old Town, if you're not coming up north and you're coming down south from either D.C. or Maryland, there's a one-way in situation, Route 1.
Yep.
And that's going to be a disaster on game days.
Correct.
A total disaster getting through these, unless they plan on really widening this or turning this into some kind of highway or something. That's going to be very, very, very hard to navigate. I think they know that.
Yeah.
But that also is going to affect Nashville Airport big time.
Correct. Exactly.
If you're flying out an hour or two before a game day, you can expect traffic to be terrible in that area.
Right.
And nobody wants that when you're trying to catch a plane. So the traffic situation on this is going to be abnormally awful if they actually do that. But I'm going to hope that they'll come up with something that would rectify all of that.
Sure.
So they're building this arena. They have the parking structure. It says part of this will be a 3,000-seat concert venue. For comparison, the Anthem holds double that.
Okay.
So it's a touch bigger than 930 Club is what you're looking at.
There's another one of those, I think, in Tyson's now. I think it's called literally Capital One Theater or something.
Right.
So I was not liking seeing that, but it seems like there are other venues that there's a demand for it, essentially, that they think they'd be able to fill it up with whatever they need to. So.
A training facility will be there. I believe their hub.
For both teams, by the way. This is all applying to both teams. This is not our theory of one moves out.
This is what they said is happening.
Yeah.
No one detailed the plans exactly. They just said this is what they believe it is.
Yeah.
Also, there would be what they're calling mixed use. So hotels, restaurants, the whole thing there. Yeah. Monumental Land. That's what they're going to get. But they're going to basically run it, own it. And I felt this way, recently when Virginia got really quiet about the Commanders. I'm like, something's not right about that. Why are they trying to get the Commanders to come here really, really badly? Oh,
right.
They have a deal in place, and this thing is speeding towards happening.
That's what I think is why everyone's kind of freaking out over the last 2 days. Because
this is happening.
Right.
I will be shocked if it doesn't.
Yeah, because it came out of nowhere, which tells you it means that it's probably happening. Because even Ted's a little bit of a master of PR. Even he knew if there were rumblings of this, people would start freaking out.
Correct.
And now the vote was actually happening.
And the politicians who want to make it happen want it to be quiet too. It's always when everybody's quiet, that's when you need. Yep. That's when you know something's really happening. Right. When everybody's real loud about something, that's when things get derailed. And so clearly both sides want this. Yeah. Glenn Youngkin has wanted a team there. But remember, he was real mealy-mouthed about the Commanders when asked about it. And all he would say was, we want a team in Northern Virginia, which I thought that should have been the sign of all signs, that's what it was, that it was already kind of heading down this path. And I will say this, and I do think this will be devastating to downtown Washington, D.C. in that area. And we could talk about what they could do with Cap One, because I don't know what that would be. And it will be devastating to an area that really doesn't need this to happen to it. But if I'm sitting in Ted's shoes, I don't think this is the wrong thing to do for the future of the franchises. And, hate me if you want for saying it. Like, I don't want to see Washington, D.C. get hurt. And I don't want to see the downtown area get hurt more than it already has since the pandemic. But if I'm him, knowing some of the details of the lease plans that they've had, that they have kind of outgrown the area a little bit, in some ways. They've been trying to stretch out through D.C. by building all these different facilities. I understand why this is attractive to him, and I don't think it's meant as a punishment to D.C. It's just a natural progression of their organization, and I don't think he's doing the wrong thing here. So, I go after Ted a lot, but I will not on this one. They're not moving out of the area.
Yeah.
They're moving to something literally right across from the Potomac River. I don't have a problem with it. And if they get what sounds like they're building, it's a place that I will frequent. It sounds like it's going to be lovely, what they're talking about building for this team. Now, what does this do to DC? I feel terrible about it. I think it's going to devastate that area that's already, been on a decline. So that's terrible.
Sure.
Secondarily, what in the world are they going to do with that space?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think this is like, it almost feels like even Ted realizes like you almost have to start again down there, and he doesn't really. It's John Allen. He doesn't want to be a part of another rebuild. Mm-hmm. He does not want to have his teams in the middle of something that
he's not trying to move to Columbus, though.
Correct. No, totally. But
he's just moving across the river.
No, I get it. But what I'm getting at here
you
is
are 3 stops away from where he was. Like it's not far. Like I don't.
Further than 3, isn't it? I think it's
whatever. It's not far.
Still got to transfer. Come on. Sure. Either way, what I'm getting at here though is it sounds like it seems like everybody can point at everybody, but he's going to stand on. I've tried to work this out. The pandemic is going to be 4 years old in a couple months. Nothing has happened. There's been no plan to revitalize downtown. There's no assurances that I can get better products, better businesses, more security. There's been none of that down here. I've just been kind of left to do all this by myself.
That's right.
I'm going to take my ball and my puck and go to the Commonwealth is pretty much what it sounds
My guess when all this stuff started happening yesterday was he's going to move the Caps. That's done.
Yeah.
And he's going to keep the Wizards downtown and have both. And now it doesn't sound like that's happening.
I think
it doesn't sound like that's happening at all.
My theory here is this, by the way. I think he's frustrated with the city because I think go look at what happened with ESA, the Mystics Arena. I think he probably tried to do something bigger down there because that's over by St. Elizabeth's, right?
Yep.
And the Mystics have been great. Like that place, as I was saying yesterday, sells out. The secondary market for those tickets is probably the best in the city. I think he was maybe trying to do something there, and I'm going to guess there hasn't. Like, oh, you built your thing, that's it. And the city probably is not making it a priority by any means because, let's be honest, that's revitalizing a part of town that needed it, but there's been nothing since it was built. And so I'm going to guess Ted is going, I brought a WNBA team in one of the fastest growing sports in the country down there, and I'm selling it out every night, but there's nothing else around it. He has the same situation in 2 different parts of the city. I don't really blame him. I hate it. I'm like you. I hate that it's going to kill the city most likely, but I don't blame him here because the city's failed all of his teams essentially.
Listen, I'll reiterate too, I kind of thought the Commanders, a couple of years ago that moving to Virginia made a lot of sense. Demographically,
sure.
Money, growth of the area, tech sectors, all that stuff. It's where a lot of the population growth and a lot of the wealth has moved in, and it's kind of the place to be right now. If you are doing this and you're selling suites and you're trying to get corporate money and all that stuff, it makes sense to me. So from that perspective, I understand why he's doing it too. I get it. I totally get it. I don't see this. I think this is unfortunately. And when he said he wanted $600 million, I went, he knows he's not getting that.
Yeah.
And this is like when the Commanders use RFK as a potential, as a negotiating piece and also gets to blame the politicians when it doesn't happen. When he threw out that number, I said it on the air. I go, he's not getting that and he knows he's not getting that. But when he doesn't get it, he's going to blame them.
Right. The flip here, though, with the Caps and the Wizards and the Commanders, in the last 5 to 6 years, the NFL has become such a king that you can really move the Commanders anywhere and they're going to be fine.
That's correct.
I think that's the biggest thing we haven't talked about is Commanders could literally go anywhere and they're going to fill the stadium up, whether it's with their own fans or away fans or whatever, because the NFL is king. Now when it comes to the NBA and the NHL, getting the casual fan into those buildings is getting harder and harder with how expensive games are getting now. Even if you're mainlining it like you and me and all of our listeners, it's getting so pricey to go to games now. The casual fan is going, I'm not spending $400 to bring my family to one game for 1 week. Like
that's where I've been on it.
I
love
appeal.
going to sporting events, and I can't stomach the price.
And I think this is what's happening is he's trying to appeal of, hey, come to this great area, and if you do spend your money, we're going to make it worth your while here. You're not just going to pop right back on the Metro after the game because there's nothing to do afterwards. So I'm guessing here, too, it's an investment, but I think the most unfortunate part about all of it is none of those ticket prices are going to go down when they move over there.
No, they're not.
It's going to get even worse. So
it's going to get more expensive. Yeah. It's expensive to go to these games, which is why I've pointed at Virginia and said, listen, that's where a lot of the young wealth is. That's where a lot of the corporate money is. That's where a lot of these businesses are coming in and planting flags. It's kind of where you need to be.
I literally had this conversation 2 nights ago when I was out in Bethesda, and I talked with somebody that had a partial plan to the Caps. And I said, I'm a Commander season ticket holder. And they laughed. And I go, don't laugh. My tickets are cheaper than yours. And he was like, no way. There's no chance. I go, what are yours? 110 a game. I go, mine are cheaper than that.
That's right.
And I sit in the first row in the upper level.
Yeah, the investment to go to the NFL is actually not that bad.
It's
there's only 8 or 9 home games.
The commitment's nothing.
The tickets are cheaper than Wizards tickets to a regular season game.
Yes. And so that's what
they are.
Yes, exactly. So until that corrects itself too, I think it's going to be wonky.
Right. But I mean, I don't there's no necessity for them to go massively up because the TV rights deals are so in favor of the NFL that there's no hardcore need for it. Basketball and the NHL are different. Yeah. They don't have those types of television ratings.
Right.
So I don't know. I feel bad for the district, but I understand why that's happening. And I don't think he's wrong in thinking about this. He couldn't build what he's talking about in D.C. That's not happening.
Can Josh Harris buy Capital One Arena and start buying blocks?
What was interesting was, and I think we were on it with the RFK thing, when they raised their hand about the RFK thing, I think they wanted it to do this.
Yeah.
That they're saying, you're going to redevelop it.
Makes sense.
Do that with us.
Yep.
And when the district was like, no, we're trying to get the football team here, they went, okay, guys, bye.
Right. And also, I'm sure Ted and Monumental made the argument of, we're only building arena and we can build the land around it up. The Commanders are only going to be able to build a stadium there and
correct.
Nothing
the only
else.
thing you put there. The land, that's what I've been saying all along about RFK. I go, you can't build Commander land there if you're going to build an NFL stadium. You can do it with a smaller stadium like this. You can. So I bet he probably said to them, don't give that to the football team.
Right.
Give that to us. We'll redevelop that for you into the whole wharf whatever, and you'll have a whole new thing. And they're holding out to try to get the football team in. They may not get them either. Right. Look what happened here.
Yes.
They just signed on to move their business operations to Maryland. D.C. might strike out on all of it.
That's what I'm saying.
And plus, they got all this red tape that they need to get through. Guys, hurry up.
Thank God
because guess what? This new ownership group is prioritizing finding a spot to build a stadium.
Right.
They're not going to wait for you the way the Snyder family did forever for you to figure it out. And now that they're about to lose the Wizards and the Capitals, I bet you're going to hit the gas pedal hard.
They have to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
hard.
Thank God they upgraded Nats Park.
So now,
that's happening this offseason.
This move actually suggests to me that RFK is much more on the table because they're going to be more willing because they're going to be scared to not get it.
Yep, correct.
And then Maryland may end up having whatever Commander land is where FedEx Field is.
I've been saying that for a year and a half now.
And maybe the practice facility goes there. Yep. The mixed use thing that involves Commander land goes there.
Yep.
So they keep their footprint there. And Virginia, by going with Ted, is the odd man out with Harris.
Correct. Exactly.
So that's the dominoes seem to be playing that way. But RFK needs to make it happen. And if they don't, then they're going to go, we're going to put the stadium in Maryland too.
That's right.
And that's your fault. Mm-hmm. All right, be right back. Bray Washington Show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. Bernie Gold tweeted us and said he never heard the word moment so many times in the first 20 minutes of the show. I also did preemptively tell my wife that yesterday there was a movement.
Might be the best moment of this iteration of the show. Because everyone picked up on it,
I
too.
just happened to say, offhanded, if you're going to make a list of complaints, it would be like you're mad at your wife for the way she eats rice, of which people thought that was too real.
That was your shot at Heather, that she apparently eats
too
rice
real.
Inappropriately or
so
something.
I had to tell her, I said this and had to clarify over and over, I have no problem with the way you eat rice. And you don't have a problem eating rice. Not in my opinion. Not like the way my dad used to eat corn on the cob.
What?
It was so gross.
Oh, God.
It's hard to do.
What are we doing here?
It's disgusting, the way he used to eat corn on the cob.
Okay. Now you have to say it.
He would have to eat the whole row across.
Okay.
Like, that's too much. So now there's corn.
I was like, what's wrong with that?
He'd have to go entirely across the cob for each, portion for him. And it's too much corn. So now it's all over his face. He chews with his mouth open.
So he was going
He ate corn on the cob very
Pac-Man.
poorly.
Just like
Yes.
chomp, 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 chomp.
He would not stop in the middle. He had to go across, and that's when he would stop, but that's too much corn. Now, my wife eats rice normally, like a normal person.
Right.
Like however you're picturing she eats rice, she eats it normally.
Got it.
I was just made a joke, and that's what came to mind, and it wasn't real. It wasn't a real thing. Now, apparently, I've said moment too many times, which maybe, but I was trying to make a point.
I had a friend in grade school that wouldn't eat corn on the cob, so he had his mom cut it.
Oh, cut it? That's lame. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you were scared of the cob?
I don't know.
It was
just one of those things you look at and went, whatever.
Whatever, right.
People eat things weird sometimes.
Yeah. Two quick things. Apparently, Al Michaels is out of calling NFC playoff games this year.
Oh, okay.
They moved on. Remember,
he did the AFC one last year, though.
NBC.
Oh, NBC, not NFC. You said NFC.
Yeah,
Sorry.
NBC.
Got it.
So he's like emeritus.
Because there's two broadcasts. Yeah.
Tirico does one, and he did the other. And last year, he walk through the greatest comeback in Jacksonville Jaguars history.
That's right. Yeah.
And was like, and they've made a field goal, and everybody was like, this isn't exciting.
Right.
So apparently, he's out.
Wow.
And it's described as he was surprised.
So who's doing it, though? That's the question.
Iron Eagle's son, Noah.
Wow. Noah is going crazy the last 2 years.
He has had a stratospheric rise. And I will say this, for someone, of his age, he's really good.
No, he's excellent. He's awesome. I sent you the video of him joking around on the Nets broadcast because he was filling in for his dad.
He's excellent. And it always bothers me, somebody that age being that good, but I can admit it. He is.
No, he's great.
Like when I've seen Chris Collinsworth kid do play-by-play, it's really bad. Yeah,
he's actually perfect on the sideline.
Fine on the sideline.
Don't give me anything else, though.
He was really bad. I saw him do a Notre Dame game earlier this year, and I was like, this is really bad.
So with Noah, it's actually funny. Noah most likely was a good soldier because remember he did 2 of the Nickelodeon games over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So I bet you the NFL felt comfortable putting him in that position too because they were like, oh, he did great with who was it? Was it Burleson that was with him on those Nickelodeon?
He was great on
And so like I'm saying they played
they pitch perfect on that one.
Correct. So I bet
and that's a very different broadcast. You're catering to kids.
Correct.
That's a very different broadcast.
So I'm guessing the NFL was like, he's called games before. We've let him in the big spotlight call games. Let's let him do a playoff game.
Yes.
And there it is.
Wow. I know he's had a big one. One other quick thing, since I just mentioned Notre Dame. Riley Leonard, very good quarterback at Duke, is transferring there.
Mm-hmm.
It's the second year in a row that they've gotten a very experienced quarterback to transfer over there. I think this is going to be their model. I think that they're...
a lot of people's model,
Well, I think it's going to be theirs for sure, because we're Notre Dame. We don't have to recruit anybody.
That's right.
We can just wait it out. Mm-hmm. We'll always have NIL money. And if they change the rules and let us start paying people, we'll have the money to do it.
That's right.
So they're going to be like a established quarterback hub every year where they get really good players. That's a heck of a model to have, and I think it's going to work for them.
Somebody, I forget who was on with Greeny. I don't know if it was Louis Riddick or someone else. Someone was on with him this morning and basically said, because of this, the way Notre Dame is doing this, he thought somehow schools are going to start signing guys to contracts.
Yep.
That essentially it's going to have to start.
Yeah, they're going to have to because look what's happening.
Right. And basically it was the only way you're kind of quote unquote let out of your contract or you have to pay money back is going to be if a head coach leaves. Everyone will then be able to do what they want. But that basically some of these recruits are going to have to sign quote unquote 3-year contracts because it's getting crazier and crazier every single year. We're
in the world, like we're college. This is settling in, and it's very smart. Notre Dame, I think, is going to be able to do this every year.
Yep.
Because they're Notre Dame.
Correct.
But like we're in a new wave of every year is going to be quarterback acquisitions.
Yep. Right.
Established quarterbacks are going to go to the highest bidder because they'll just go in this portal every year and they'll go to the highest bidder. And a team like Notre Dame with that kind of brand is going to be sitting pretty every year. So they have a quarterback for 1 or 2 years tops. They don't care. Right. They're getting like. This guy could be a pro. They got him to just come over to them. Last year, they got another guy. I can't remember who it was, but he was like a very established Wake Forest quarterback for 4 years, and they got him to go in there. This is going to happen every year with them.
It's the new junior college. The lesser programs are now the junior college all over
If you
again.
produce a really good quarterback, a program like that's going to step up and say, you want to be the Notre Dame quarterback for a year? Here's how much money we're going to give you, and you're going to be the Notre Dame quarterback, and if you do well, you'll get drafted really high.
Yeah.
Smart. All right, let's talk about what Montez Sweat said next. Brad, watch the show. He's been 6:30 Sports Capital. In my latest little record shopping thing, I ran into a store and bought this, Huey Lewis and the News Sports, for $7.
Wow. Yeah. Good enough condition, I assume?
I hope so. We'll find out, won't we?
Haven't played it yet.
Haven't played it yet. This song will skip 50 times, but all right. My friends at the Military Bowl would like me to point out, since I brought up Riley Leonard, Military Bowl MVP.
There you go.
Last year for Duke. This year they have a good game. I'll be on the sideline again with them.
Right.
At Navy Stadium, Virginia Tech, Tulane.
I know. I would go if I didn't have caps that night. I would go. But
you watch Virginia Tech games, right?
Sometimes, but not all the time. Why?
Are you surprised that they're an 8-point favorite?
Yes.
That seems high.
They're very hot and cold, so I don't know which team's showing up, or maybe the other team's guys aren't playing. That could be the other.
Is that what's going on here,
I don't
maybe?
know. I don't know. That's what I'm just guessing.
Tulane's pulling people?
Maybe. They were like ranked all year long in low 20s, weren't they?
Yes.
Like they were. Yeah. So
they had like a really close game with Ole Miss.
Yeah. So maybe they might just not have players playing. I think that's where the spreads are getting wonky with some of these games.
They all went in the portal.
Or
something like
or if
that.
they're going to the draft, it's like I play for Tulane.
How many Tulane players are going in the draft?
I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Spitballing.
If there's the one or two best players aren't playing for them, then maybe that's the difference.
Great event, by the way, if you haven't been. Navy Stadium's amazing, number one. And you can see Virginia Tech, so that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm looking forward to it.
If I didn't have caps that night, I would definitely go, but there's no way I can make it from Annapolis back here in a reasonable amount of time. If it was a noon kick, I'd go, but 2 o'clock.
I also have a picture of previous Military Bowl MVP Sam Howell
There you go.
when he was a freshman at North Carolina, which I tweeted out after they drafted him last year. I was like, oh, my God, look at that. Look at you. Look at me and you, Sammy. Look at me and you.
Get that one framed behind you?
I did. I did get
you
that
did
one
get it
framed.
framed?
I did get that one framed. I got that one. I got 2 pictures from that event that I've gotten framed. Me and Sam Howell now. I didn't at first, but once they drafted him, I'm like, oh, I got to have this framed. And then if he becomes great, I'm going to make him sign it. And then I framed one with me and former Governor Larry Hogan.
Okay.
From the event.
Nice.
So, and hopefully Wes Moore shows up to everything sports, so I'm going to assume he's going to be there too.
He'll be there in split jerseys. I mean, like he goes to everything.
Well, no, he won't be in a Tulane jersey, will he? I don't think so.
I don't know. He puts on every jersey that he goes to. So
Hogan was funny. A couple years ago, Virginia was in it when I did it, and he like made fun of them. He was like, "Thanks for coming over to Maryland and giving us your money." It was like a funny joke. I like Larry Hogan, by the way.
Hogan's good. I like him.
Yeah, in a different political climate, he could run for president. In this political climate, he can't.
He was talked about until everything changed.
Well, he's way too normal.
That's right.
Way too normal. We don't want a normal guy.
Right.
Why would we want a normal guy?
Of course not.
Who wants a normal guy running for president? Who wants that? Ugh. Blah.
Who wants a Republican candidate that won in a heavily Democratic area?
Yeah, who wants that?
Why would you want that? Jeez.
Oh, boy. Okay.
We'll leave that for down the hall. We'll leave that for down the hall.
Yeah, it's for down the hall. You guys can deal with that. Let's see. All right. A couple things. Former local players saying interesting things. Let's start with Montez Sweat.
Okay.
Montez Sweat is having a pretty good run in Chicago. Their defense has been better. People are very, very happy about what's going on with him. In fact, let's see. I'm going to get the stats up. Yeah, here we go. Ian Rappaport from a couple days ago. Montez Sweat has a team-high 3.5 sacks in the 5 games since he joined the Bears, while helping the Bears become a top 5 defense during that time.
Oh, boy.
From NFL research, since Montez Sweat joined the Bears defense is ranked among the NFL's top 5 units in total defense, pass defense, and takeaways.
Joy.
Okay. Is that all him? Of course not.
Right.
Is he a major addition for them? Sure. And like I said earlier, at least they're having their moment. They're having their moment.
Drink.
Yeah.
Moment.
So then Montez Sweat, because, boy, he's the belle of the ball out there because things are better, was asked about, being acquired, getting a lot of money, and the team is playing a lot better, and he's getting a lot of credit for it. And here's what he said.
Where I came from, it was, it was kind of like just waiting on the season and kind of. But here it's like every week, it's a new challenge, and people want to play for the man beside him. Man. That's what I'm here for.
Okay. That's a very pointed criticism.
That's also what John Allen says a lot in the end of seasons too, where he says, we're just playing for the man next to us. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a John Allen quote.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Look how he's playing. And there's a lot of layers to this one that don't make me happy.
No,
but
I mean,
here we are.
Here we are. Montez is a man of few words in general.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
I learned this through the 3.5, 4 years he was here, 4 years he was here. He doesn't do a lot of interviews. When he does do them, he typically doesn't say a lot. He's a good guy. He just that's not his thing.
Yep.
He's also getting a lot of credit for a turnaround this year, and he's probably a big part of it. And they love what they see from him. And but it's a pretty pointed criticism, basically saying when I was there, we're waiting to get the season over with.
Right.
And secondarily, the other thing he said, because he was asked about the coach there, because the coach is under a lot of heat, whether he's going to be there beyond this season. I think there's a lot of questions about him and Ryan Poles for that matter. And this acquisition's helping Ryan Poles make his case because he's done a lot of strange trades, and not all of them have worked out very well. And he's done them at times, like second year in a row at the trade deadline with a team that's not going to make the playoffs, and he's making massive trades for people. It's an unusual thing to do. Chase Claypool one blew up in his face. This one seems to be working out very well. Roquan Smith did not work out very well. Whatever. Like he said about the coach has kept us together in the locker room and pointed out that wasn't happening at the last place. So he had a double whammy of, and I get like some guys don't like being traded because they feel like, what are you doing?
Right.
So that might be part of it. And then the results are the results. They've turned their season around, and they're probably not going to make the playoffs, but they're playing a lot better and they're having their moment. We have not. The whole idea after the trade deadline of maybe we'll collectively play better didn't happen.
Right.
I was worried this was a tinderbox with the way things were set up, and it doesn't appear as if that anybody's on the same page anymore, really about almost anything, and we've got to get through this season and get to the other side and see what it looks like. So I'm not saying he's wrong.
Right. No,
it's just tough to hear, obviously. The second time in a week we've had a prominent player we drafted, one who's still on the team and one who's not,
right,
who have basically said the same things. It's very difficult to hear.
From what was supposed to be the most dominant unit, both from the same unit, right? Like, I think
these are the group of people that are supposed to take us back to the promised land.
Right. And instead they're saying
one's happy he's gone,
right,
and the other one is screaming 1,000% I think about leaving.
Right. So I'm interested to see now, because I think at the end, this is going to be like hockey. Remember, like, when your team is in the playoffs and like, oh, that guy's banged up. We just don't know what he has. And it's like, he tore his ACL and he was playing every night. I think we're going to look back and we're going to hear about what happened, mainly with letting the enemy have the power, because that's what it sounds like. It sounds like leadership got broken somehow.
Yes.
And
it did.
And we are going to have to hear what the exact details were, because it sounds like they were basically finished before they ever played a game. That's what it sounds like to me. Because
when I bring this up a lot, when they lost to Buffalo,
right,
and they were 2-1.
That's right, and freaking out.
Terry McLaurin said, of all people, we need to figure out what kind of team we're going to be.
Yeah.
I went, what are you talking about? You're 2-1, and you lost to a team that is on the precipice of winning the Super Bowl every year. Why are you so upset?
Yeah, right, exactly.
And it was the red flag of red flags where I went, let's see how they do in Philadelphia. And when they played the way they played, I went, oh, we're good. Yeah. We're okay. I know we lost, but we're okay. Then the Bears game happened, and it was, we're not. And we've never recovered.
Thank God.
Not even come close.
Thank God they beat the Ravens in the preseason, though.
Oh, man. That's our moment.
That's your moment.
That's our moment.
It's that in the Browns game when they handed the game ball to Josh and said, here's your first win.
The sale the team and the Ravens preseason game.
Damn it.
And the Ravens preseason.
What a waste of time this season has been.
The Ravens preseason game was like actually scary a little bit because they'd announced Sam was going to be the starter before it.
That's right.
And I remember going, why?
Yeah.
Why would you say it? Like, there's no reason to. You don't have to. Say it after, because you're not going to play him in that last preseason game, so who cares? Why are you preemptively saying it? I remember going into it going, they just announced him as the starter. What if he's bad tonight?
Right.
Then what are they going to do?
Was the Ravens not the last one? Who was the last preseason
Cincinnati.
game? Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's the Bengals. That's right.
Well, they played Monday night, and then they played Saturday. And they basically said, and it was the last preseason game, they're like, nobody's going to play.
Nobody's playing.
So it was one of those things where I was like, you don't have to say he's the starter. What's the difference? But they did. They felt pressure to say it for some reason, and they did. And it was one of those preemptive bets where I'm like, God, I hope he looks good. And he did, thankfully.
Right.
Because it was like, okay, you did pick the right guy. Because I'm like, what if they play poorly?
Yeah.
And then what? No, I like over before it started. I don't know that it's an overstatement. I think.
No, look at how
I've been saying this for a while all year. There's a number of stories this year. One's been the defense, collectively, individually. What happened here? Like I'd like to hear the truth telling of that because that's not Bieniemy's fault. Like you put anything on. He doesn't run that side of the ball.
No, of course.
So I don't understand what happened there. But on the Bieniemy stuff, I would more say I put this on Rivera for ceding so much power. Like the team was begging you to take it back early and get control of it and advocate on our behalf a little bit more than you are, and he refused to do it. And I remember saying
Ron didn't do something fast enough.
Well, I remember
he was. We were told what
I
he
know,
should
but
do.
this one, him being in charge is not something he shied away from, which is what I thought was really the odd part of it. And I remember saying at the time, like when he said the stuff about Bieniemy, and then it blew up in his face, and then he did a prepared statement apologizing. I went, "Who's the head coach here?"
That's their moment.
I said, "Who's the head coach?" Like, aren't you the head coach? Like, you're the decider. Remember, you're the decider, and like that clearly is a big part of this. And I remember when I heard people saying, like, when things were going awry, like, just promote Bieniemy. I'm going, I don't think so, guys. Actually, I don't think that's going to go over very well if they did that.
Obi-Wan.
Don't think so.
Obi-Wan Bieniemy.
No.
You'll give me power now.
No. I just think he made a decision, whether this was explicit or not, to give him that side of the ball and really stay out of his way.
Yep.
And not everything he did played very well with the team. And it's so much so that team leaders came to him and said, we need to back off just a little bit here or whatever, to whatever degree they did.
Yeah.
And his answer to them was go talk to him about it. And then he didn't do anything about it. And then, you know, if you don't have everybody on the same page, you're going to have a hard time in a coordinated sport like this to get them all to be on the same page. And then as the season progressed, not surprisingly, like I expected ups and downs with the offense. Young quarterback, bad offensive line, new scheme. Everybody's getting used to everything. That's all par for the course. But along the way, we're throwing the ball way too much. Or Robinson's not part of this. Or now Terry doesn't get the ball. And so I think there's been a learning curve on everybody's side where even the players are pushing back going, you can complain about us, but like, how do I not make a catch in this game? Or how does he have 5 carries? Like, explain how that. Why are we 70-30 pass? Like, how would that even make any sense?
That's been the joke of like Sam Howell somehow drops back 45 times, yet Dotson and McLaurin don't go off somehow. That's like the weirdest thing.
There were 2 or 3 weeks in a row where we were like, they're not going to do that again. And they did.
Watch me.
They came out, they're throwing, and we're like, what is going on? Like, you'd say, they were in a bubble not listening to anybody who goes, because even Rivera in the past, he listens to everything would go, you know, I think we might need to run the ball a little bit more. And then he would publicly say it. And when he wouldn't in the middle of the year, when everybody was like, aren't you going to run the ball a little bit more? And he wouldn't admit to that. He goes, I like what we're doing. I went,
crap.
Well, I just said you've ceded too much power here. Like you need to step in and be the head coach again and do what you think is right. Right, because it's your team. Your team.
You weren't here last week, but Keim and Jeremy Fowler dropped a huge piece.
Yeah, I read
that.
But and I talked to Keim about it.
And like the Bieniemy thing on that one was that his meetings were going over too far to the point where he suggested they have foam rollers in the meeting room. And it was just like, you can't do that in today's NFL anymore. Like, it's just not how it works anymore.
Yeah, everything. I talked to Keim a lot about this. Maybe I'll talk to him about it this week. But like everything, you know, again. You know, I know. I don't mean to sound. This is gonna sound weird, but like all the things he wrote, I knew.
Yeah,
it's just these are the things. Yeah. These are the things that I don't want to emphasize or point out. May or may not be problems because I don't want to be the person to say that. But as results come in, then you can start talking about them. Because let's just say he did this early and the offense went gangbusters. Well, then it worked.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
So now that they're 4-9 and the offense looks wayward.
Yeah, right.
You could say
factor all these in,
so I like to work in Keim's same way. I like to work off results and not be reactionary to this guy doesn't like this. Well, what if it works? Well, then maybe it's a you problem, you know. And that's what we said from the get-go. his reputation preceded himself. It was obvious that not everybody was totally pleased, right? That became evident. I knew early. I think one of the things we talked about in the spring, I said, this isn't going to be for everybody. Like, I've heard about him, but that's okay. I think they need some accountability. And actually back in the spring, I went, you know what? I like the way he runs things here. I think this team needs a little more, kick in the butt, honestly. I was all for it, kind of.
Sure.
And then by the time the summer came around, when some certain people were saying a few certain things, I went, I would put it this way. After hearing a snarky response from Terry McLaurin, of all people, I went, if you've lost him, you're doing something wrong.
Yep.
Because there's nobody that is more, I want to win here, win doing it the right way, put in the work to do it.
Carries the flag, as we like to say.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like and if you're having trouble getting through to him to be on the same page, then you're off in your messaging. And I'm not suggesting like he's not a good coach or anything like that. I just think you clearly aren't connecting with some of the right people and working with them. I remember back in the summer when we were watching this happen and he's screaming at him. And I'm like, part of me was going, good. Let's get this thing. Let's make a buttoned up operation. That like, I was kind of like, does he ever listen to them? Because is this a collaborative
two-way street? Yeah.
At some point, it has to be a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
And it really felt very my way or the highway. And now it's the highway.
Right.
Now it's too late,
yeah.
And that worried me when I saw McLaurin say what he said after the last game, because it's preposterous for him not to have a catch in a game. When I heard him say it the way he said it, I went, uh-oh. And it's been clear from the jump, because he's one of the people that I think was like saying, hey, I think we need to maybe back off a little bit here. It's a little too much, or we don't like what's going on or whatever. And nothing changed. That's where we are. Everybody's got to be on the same page.
Yeah.
You got to be rowing the boat the same way. Their record is not emblematic of their roster, in my opinion. So that's a fundamental breakdown organizationally, and there's a lot of reasons for that.
I think there's an argument there, but I mean,
do they have a Super Bowl roster? No, I never thought that. But do they have a 4-9 second overall pick roster? I didn't think that. That's why I said from the get-go, when people projected their record to be what it was, I went, they're too good for that. Like, they may not win 12 games, but like them winning 5 seems crazy to me.
Yeah.
Now that's not even going to happen.
Right.
But that, I think, has less to do with the talent that's on the team and more to do that organizationally they just haven't been on the same page.
Correct.
Both sides of the ball.
Yeah, no.
The part with the defense that bothers me is that's not a different coaching staff. Mm-hmm. That is largely the same group of people. Right. They just broke down this year.
Correct. They not only broke down, but then I've talked about it, their decisions to draft for need have just blown up in their face. Like with the 2 defensive players that they've drafted. And that would be in Jamin Davis and in Forbes. Not only were they not hits, Forbes was benched after 3 weeks, 4 weeks? And and same thing, like it wasn't
he
over.
Had a welcome to the NFL moment with A.J. Brown.
But it was also the same thing as like the Tyreek Hill thing. It was like, shouldn't you be helping this kid out? It's his 4th game of ever playing in the NFL, and
man-to-man with maybe the best receiver in the last 10 years.
Who was over 100 yards for I don't know however many times.
And
like
who nobody can cover because he's too fast.
That's right.
Nobody can cover him.
Like, to me,
he's the ultimate weapon. You can't cover him.
Right. So
to me,
he's
a track star.
It was like you were putting them in a position to fail and then going, oh my God, how could he do that? And I was like, well, duh, he did that. He's 4 games into his career. So to me, it was how the roster was built as well with some of that stuff too, that it was like you were hinging on everything being perfect, and when it wasn't, it all cratered on you like a house of cards.
It did. It's rough. And you know what? I mean, like, I hate hearing it, know, from Sweat, but I don't think anything he said was wrong.
No.
Other than I hate hearing we're waiting for the season to end. Like, that's tough to hear. But to sit there and say this wasn't kept together, I think the proof's in the pudding this year that it wasn't, which is another one of the surprises for me. Because I'll reiterate over and over, I've seen this 3+ years. I expected them to turn it around because he always did.
Right.
They did play hard for him. They did turn it around. They weren't good enough to go far, but like they were always in all these games, and they would win a game that surprised you. They'd beat a really good team. Then they'd go on a mini run, and they'd turn their season around, and we'd be in it. And that just didn't happen this year. So that to me reads Rivera, and the team begged for this. We want you to take more control. We play for you. And he ceded too much authority to the offensive side of the ball. The defensive side of the ball, I need more information.
Yep.
Because that one isn't Bieniemy. That is That's the same coaching staff with a couple of exceptions of people that left, but like it's the same roster that supposedly was quote unquote upgraded through the draft with the same coaching staff. Jack Del Rio was so loose in the offseason. Remember, I'm like, he's playing with a full deck and he knows it.
Right.
Nope. Full deck that fell down in week 1.
Correct. And by the way, he couldn't go on the same old tropes of, they weren't here for workouts, so they're not communicating. Like, It was never cleaned up.
No. It sounds like the building was never on the same page. The changes just didn't work out the way they wanted them to. And that's unfortunate. Here we are. And now, because of the decisions that were made and the way it was handled, we are where we are, and we don't know what the future is, but I think we all have a pretty good guess.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, the other part of this, all of this as well, was Rivera had a team on offense that I would say, and I think you might agree with me here, is that they were more old school. They wanted to run the ball. They have 2 solid wide receivers, but they weren't this like crazy shotgun spread offense type thing. Yet they bring in a guy who does a passing offense, and all of a sudden you're trying to do it in 1 year, trying to take that personnel and do what he did in Kansas City.
With an average to below average offensive line.
Yeah, that's
and an inexperienced quarterback. Which is why early in the season when they were throwing so much and taking so many sacks, we were all kind of like, you might want to run the ball a little more and take a little pressure off this kid. Like,
absolutely not.
No, we're not going to do that.
He passes like it's his life.
But it is a symbol of, I'm going to do what I want to do. You're not going to tell me that I'm going to do it any different. And I think that's why some of the players were saying the same thing. Guy, you need to listen to us a little bit here, too. We're the ones out on the field, and you're getting this guy killed.
Yep, right, exactly.
All right, let me take a quick break. The other thing I want to play is another ex-player who said something, Bryce Harper, before the Cowboys-Eagles game that I want to play and get your reaction to next. We're watching the show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. All right, so I want to play this Bryce Harper clip. He did an intro piece for the Eagles-Dallas game for Sunday Night Football, as we know, he was a big Cowboys fan.
Yep.
Even though he's from Las Vegas, he became a big Cowboys fan. Now he plays in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. He lives and breathes it. We know this. He likes Philadelphia.
Embodiment of the city. They're a perfect match.
Hard turn here for him, I would think. It's Cowboys to Eagles. So you want to play it?
Sure.
Here's the piece they did.
Real talk now. When I was a kid, I grew up mesmerized by the blue star on the silver helmet. All the glory and tradition of America's team. I was a Cowboys fan. And then I moved to Philly.
And it's gone!
Kind of a work thing.
Harper's 300th career home run.
If you know my city, you know what the Eagles mean to us. They're part of the Philly fabric, Philly pride, and the Philly way. And so I know from being on both sides of this rivalry how important this game tonight is to these teams.
Give me everything you got!
All the history.
These are two teams that just simply don't like each other.
All the memories.
You can feel it in your bones.
Believe me, as an athlete, when you become part of that, you get consumed by it. So even if they weren't two of the best teams in football,
Touchdown, Eagles!
when these two sides get together,
It's going to be a barn burner.
it just matters more.
Go win it!
Philly, Dallas, on Sunday night.
First, great piece.
Fantastic. Yep.
Well done.
Yep.
Terrific.
Mm-hmm.
Willing to admit that's great for him. Obviously, he's a super Philly guy. So, of course, he's going to do it.
MLB's jumping for joy because they got one of their superstars in front of the biggest game of the week, too.
Correct.
Like, that's huge.
Love it.
Yeah.
Philly loves him even more today.
Of course.
He's throwing on the green.
Yep.
He's got a Go Birds tattoo on his lower lip. He's ready to go.
He doesn't, but I see what you're getting at.
So when I saw this,
you and I are going to be on the opposite sides of this. I already know.
He could have done a piece. I moved to Washington. For a work thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Could have embodied the Washington Redskins at the time.
I'll correct you.
But they didn't. He didn't do that.
He did, actually. People don't really like to talk about this. When RG3 was playing, he showed up to a Redskins game, was wearing a Redskins hat, and actually took a selfie in a bathroom because a little kid was wearing a Harper shirt and said, "Do you think he knows?" Because the kid didn't recognize him. So he has embodied it. It just didn't get the play that happens here. He didn't go full jersey, but he was wearing a Redskins hat. There's a picture of him.
Then I stand corrected. because John Wall came here, famous Cowboys fan.
Correct.
Never shifted.
Right.
I even once as a bit down at a Wizards media day, handed him a Darryl Green jersey, and he looked at me like I was nuts.
He almost gang signed on you.
Yeah, and I probably threw it away.
Probably.
Or if he was something nice, gave it to somebody who would wear it because he wouldn't. So he was never going to let it go. See, I read that as I was like, well, he was in Washington and didn't pull that.
Right. He did embrace it, just not like that, is what I'll say. It's not the same level. But guess what? This is what we talk about all the time with the ecosystem up there. It's just different. You're not throwing just a hat on. You are getting the lower lip tattoo and going full go Birds.
If I remember right, and granted he had to be asked to do this, but in RG3's year, RG3 went to Dallas on Thanksgiving and won. And they could have done there he is with a Redskins hat on.
That's after a game, too.
I would have liked to have seen the 1 minute, 30 second went to Washington. It's a work thing. There's nothing like Cowboys, Redskins.
Right.
And I embody it because I'm all DC.
That was also, though, you got to remember that was his rookie year. So they weren't going to hand him the keys to do the intro for that. He was 19 years old.
I know, but he also was a little bit LeBron Jamesy of baseball.
Sure, they were going to do that. He came in,
they were doing, SI did covers of him when he was 13, whatever, he was, everybody knew he'd be this good.
Here's where I will vehemently defend Bryce, too. And I think it's worth pointing this out. He grew up in Las freaking Vegas, and his favorite teams growing up were the worst.
Yankees.
Cowboys, Yankees, Lakers, and Duke. Those were his teams. Like, if it doesn't tell you the global reach of all of the brands that he was a fan of, I don't know what else to tell you. And
that is the all-time stereotype of a bandwagon sports fan, that those would be the teams you like.
Exactly. Yeah. But he grew up in a town that literally rooted for only the winners.
That's right.
And so this is where I'll defend Bryce. Go look at what has happened since then. He now embraces Philly, where he's been, and that's perfectly fine. I have no problem with him embracing it. But then I saw a lot of Washington fans go, oh, well, when the Caps were in the finals, he was rooting for Vegas. Because Vegas was his team. It was the first time ever that he had a team that was legitimately his, because even remember with the A's, with all of them moving to Vegas, he goes, nobody wants them. Give us an expansion team, so it's ours. So I think Bryce is actually a little bit smarter than everyone leads on, that he's basically, he picks...
I was just a little, I know he's all Philly, and I get it, and I thought it was a great bit that he did, and he's going to endear him even more to the people in Philadelphia. But I was like, man, you were here, and we're their biggest rival. I don't remember you gushing over the Redskins at the time.
It didn't. It was like usual. It didn't get the same run because that team just doesn't get the same run, which is something you go off on all the time about. When they do something right, nobody talks about it. He was wearing a Redskins hat, and nobody talked about it really, or it didn't last that long. With Bryce, I think... this happens as you grow older, too.
This is an interesting conversation if I can get in front of Mitchell Rales and Josh Harris to talk about for the future, that we need to work on that, to get that kind of level of connection back, where those things start happening and it becomes a big play thing, and NBC asks a star of another sport to say, I embody the Commanders because it means so much to Washington.
Correct. Yeah. And it just doesn't happen because we are a transient city. And as I said, too, I think it's worth pointing out, Philly's just a different animal. It's a completely different sports animal, and I always say I'm jealous of it, because when you step into it, it's I don't know, it's Mad Max. It's the Thunderdome.
I don't remember him citing quotes off this show, but he tells me he listens to WIP.
That's right.
Doesn't he?
Exactly. And so that's what I'm getting at here. I just think it's a different animal, and when you step into the Philly realm, you fully embrace all of it. You don't just step in. Look at the reverse. Look at Mike Trout. He's sitting on the front row of Eagles games. He's never embodied anything out in LA.
He's not like, I'm all Chargers.
No, he's still Mike Trout from freaking Jersey is who he is when he goes over there. So it's just, I think you need to actually just give more props to Philly, because they are, honestly, like the epicenter of sports these days. They are not Boston, and they're not New York.
He's probably dying to go play for the Phillies, Trout.
Oh my God, bet he's dying to do Bryce was joking about that before he got the crazy deal. Yeah. But, like, this is what I'm saying here, too. New York is its own thing. Boston is its own thing. Philly is like, we don't mess with them. Like, because when you step in, it's, like I said, it's the Thunderdome, and he is a part of it now. He literally embodies the city.
And he likes the Thunderdome. One other thing on him.
By the way, with Bryce and Philly, like, it was the match made in heaven no one knew about either. Like, we never thought it was going to go like
Everybody
this.
thought he was going to go to the Yankees.
Well, but it was also when he signed with Philly, you're kind of like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And now the way they've grown to love each other is like, damn it, you both are so happy. And I hate it. I hate it that you both are so happy with each other.
That's right.
Whatever. You're perfect for each other.
The one other thing on him. Did he ask for an extension?
He did. Yeah. He's been saying out loud that he wants to spend the rest of his career in Philly. This is more for me.
He's got 8 years left.
Yeah, this is for me is more like, oh wow, I'm not getting paid a lot, so give me an extension. It's probably not going to happen. Like
8 years left.
Right. He's also been injured up there too. Like when he's not injured, he's an MVP candidate, but he's been hurt. They're not going to give him an extension.
I could see maybe increasing his pay a little bit, but extend it.
Guess what? In baseball, you're locked in. You're not going to get anything extra.
Yeah.
They're not going to up your pay. So also, you're moving to first base.
But also
probably.
to the other point of like, we know you love us.
Right.
Where are you going?
He's also moving to first base DH.
You going to go play for the Royals? I don't think so, buddy.
The guy isn't this crazy defensive player either anymore. He's simply a hitter. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Everybody's doing it. So.
One other baseball thing.
Yeah.
Apparently, Shohei Ohtani has deferred $680 of the $700 million he got.
Yes.
The Dodgers have agreed to pay him $680 million after he presumably retires.
That's right. Yeah. When he's 39 years old or 40, whatever
right.
it is. Yeah.
That one feels like money laundering. Two feels like cheating in some way. It really doesn't feel right. Granted, he's willing to do it, and very few people I think would be willing to do it. So I'll hear that part out. But feels like a massive competitive advantage they just got by getting him to agree to do something like that, and it feels like cheating on some level.
One, the number one thing I've been saying to everybody that's going off on this, it was his idea. It was his idea. He went to the Dodgers and said, I want to win so badly. What can I do? And it was, all right, we're going to give you $2 million so we can still go out and sign everybody. And you can still be on the roster. It was his idea because he wants to win so bad.
And he's going to get $68 million a year for 10 years,
10 years
after he retires.
Correct. Exactly. And by the way, there are a bunch of people that are going, there are a bunch of people going off going, this is terrible for the game. It's going to change everything. You can't have it both ways. Shohei, the reports are already saying he only wanted $2 million a year because he makes $50 million in endorsements. Right. So you finally have an athlete coming forward going, I make enough money. Let me help out the team. You can't have it both ways now. Because
not enough to not get the $700 million.
No, of course, but he's literally going, what can I do right now to help you out? And he did.
That's a crazy deal, by the way.
It's insane.
It's in every way, shape, and form. It's a crazy deal.
But here's the thing. The Dodgers are not breaking any rules. They are doing everything. And
it feels like
his cap hit is $46 million because you have to adjust. You can't just let him have $2 million. You have to adjust.
$46 million for revenue share.
Correct. Exactly. So essentially.
Because there's no cap. You can spend whatever you want.
No, of course. But the fact that it was his idea, I mean, props to him. He wants to win so badly that he's willing to just go, I'll dip into my endorsement deal. That's fine. That's crazy.
Well, I would like to think I could live on $2 million a year, and I wouldn't have to dip into anything.
In LA,
but that's just me.
In LA, actually, it's pretty.
I think I could pull it off. I think $2 million a year, I could pull that off.
I was asking this question, and I don't know what the deal is. If they're cutting him that check, everyone's saying, "Oh, well, of course, if you just invested that, he's missing out on hundreds of millions of dollars."
That's true.
But my thing is, what if he moves to like Florida? And they're cutting him that check every year. Does he not get taxed on that because he technically did his work in LA? Like, there's got to be.
That's a good accountant question.
That's what I think actually is the question that needs to be asked here. Like, is he going to make so much more by moving somewhere after he retires?
So if he moves after he retires.
Let's say he moves back to Japan. Like, is there another rule for that? Like, that's what I actually have a legitimate question on.
If he establishes residency in a state that doesn't have state taxes, does he then at that point
make so much more hand over fist because he's going to defer so much of it? Like, I think that's the other question.
So now he's a tax fraud. Okay.
No. Once again, he's not breaking any rules. I think that's the question here, too.
Wow.
Like, what if he goes back to Japan and they're cutting him that check? Like, does that...
That I don't know. See, that I have no idea about. Like, what is the tax laws by being a resident in Japan and getting money from California? I don't know.
I don't know. But all I'm saying is he could probably skirt by a lot of the tax money because... Orange County is probably the most expensive county in America.
Oh my God.
So, yeah. By the way, I think there's a marketing employee here no one's talking about. This is pure me, by the way. I haven't heard this anywhere else. The Mets still do Bobby Bonilla Day, and now they're celebrating it.
Mm-hmm.
Shohei Day is going to be a thing.
Shohei Day for
10 years.
$68 million.
10 years. You get to do Shohei Day. Especially, what if they win 2 or 3 World Series with him? You get to do Shohei Day every year?
What if they don't?
If they don't, I mean, which I think is the side I'm leaning towards. But either way, they're going to be able to sign whoever they want. It's not going to affect them.
What if he can't ever pitch again? Because, I don't know, he's had Tommy John surgery twice.
Right. But he's still an amazing hitter, and you're just paying for the marketing machine, which is fine. I mean,
I guess.
it's your money.
It's your money. That's I agree. You just need one person to say yes to something like that.
Right.
And honestly, Toronto must have been close to this.
So
they must have been.
Well, so what I heard was,
how would it have even come down to the wire if it was like, if they weren't in that neighborhood?
Well, no, if the Angels, I think it's easy math here. If the Angels were willing to go to 600, which they were, and apparently to Ohtani, the most important thing to him is his routine, is that, like, on game day, he likes to do things a certain way, and the Angels fully were like, do whatever you want, dude. Clearly, that was important to him, so the Blue Jays were willing to do that. The Dodgers were willing to do that. But if the Angels are willing to do $600 million, how much were the Blue Jays in for? Like, were they in for $650 million? And that's when the Dodgers jumped in and did $700. Like, clearly everybody was willing to spend over $500 million. Easily.
All right. So, good for him.
His idea. I have to respect it. Like, I normally would knock a guy signing on with the Dodgers like that, but if he's going, winning is so important to me, I'll defer $680 million for the next decade. I have to respect it. There's nothing else I could do.
The Lerners are like, cool.
The Lerners are like, why didn't you call us, pal?
Yeah.
We would have sold the team off before that kicked in.
We would have done that yesterday.
Yeah.
I'll tell you exactly when we're selling the team. In 9 years and 10 months.
Yes. They're like, Bryce, we tried doing it with you.
Now I'm never getting the Nationals.